and those fires were placed under control within 40 minutes of the original dispatch time. We can confirm that the tanker driver did die as a result of the incident. One house located on Apple Avenue suffered extensive damage, which displaced the occupants of the home. 2 other residents received minor damage from the fire. There are no reported injuries to the occupants of the homes or any fire rescue personnel. The Maryland State Police are on the scene handling the investigation of the accident. The Maryland Department of the Environment, the Frederick County Division of Fire and Rescue's Hazardous Materials Team, and the Frederick City Department of Public Works are on the scene and have confirmed that the hazardous materials involved in the incident are contained. And they were contained prior to reaching Carroll Creek. I'm also glad to share that the foam used in the firefighting efforts were environmentally friendly and did not include any PFAS material. There is some foam residue that is visible in Carroll Creek, and we're working with the Maryland Department of the Environment and Frederick City Public Works to contain the spread of that foam from the fire. There is no risk to the public at this time. On behalf of the Frederick County Division of Fire and Rescue Services, I'd like to thank our local, county, and state partners who worked so hard to keep the residents of Frederick City safe during this event. I'd like to turn it over now to Frederick City Mayor Michael O'Connell.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate it very much. This is a scary day. A rapidly moving incident with a lot of moving parts, very complicated, and the agencies that you're seeing here today represent the best of what this county does when faced with a tragedy and a challenge. My thoughts are with the families of the driver and the residents who were affected by the fires that followed this accident. Because of the response of Frederick County Division of Fire and Rescue Services, the Frederick Police Department, the Fire Marshal's Office, and all of our other first responders, this was not a worse incident. And as always, I'm thankful for the quick coordination and the courage of our first responders who kept so many people in our community safe today. I'm equally thankful to our Department of Public Works that jumped into action to prevent fuel spillage and damage to Carroll Creek. I would add, additionally, there were rumors of some of this material ending up in the city's sanitary sewer system, and we had no breach of the sanitary sewer system. So nothing into Carroll Creek, nothing into the sewer system. All in all, what could have been a really tragic incident was sidestepped. We will continue to monitor the environmental effects of this incident in the coming days and weeks ahead, working very closely with MDE. We're appreciative of the partnership and the cleanup efforts that will follow. Just finally, I just want to once again note the joint response, the clear communication that occurs between the agencies that you see here, everyone involved. This effective working relationship from the state to the county to the city is really important, and it's why an incident like this isn't more serious than it could have been when the initial reports went out. I'm also happy to say that we've been in contact with the governor's office, with the office of Congressman Trone, with Fort Detrick, all who have offered their support as we continue to work through this effort. And so that partnership that we have exists from the federal government all the way down. So we appreciate very much you all being here. Guess we're ready to take any questions.
What company was the tanker with, and what kind of flammable liquid was inside?
Good afternoon. That is still under investigation, ma'am.
Okay, so we don't know if it was fuel, and are we worried that the fumes from the fire that was going on, from the flammable liquid, are we worried that the fumes might have been toxic to inhale?
Again, this is still under investigation. Happened a little over 3 hours ago.
Hey, Zach Merchant from Channel 9 in DC. What caused this explosion?
That's still under investigation as well, sir.
Okay. How about this? You mentioned, or I should say the fire chief mentioned that the fire has been contained. Does that mean the fire is out? Is it still burning? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I can confirm that the fire has been completely extinguished. It was contained within 40 minutes of the time of dispatch, but all fires have been completely extinguished. And to the earlier question, we're still working to verify the exact products in the truck, but we do know that it was a flammable liquid transport truck that was involved in the accident. So we're working with the the owner of the truck to verify the contents of it, but it was a flammable liquid.
Was the tanker the only vehicle involved in the crash, or were there other vehicles?
Yes, sir.
What caused the tanker to veer off and strike that tree, I guess?
As the lieutenant advised, that's all still under investigation by crash investigators.
So when I was at the scene talking to people on Apple Avenue, there was crime scene tape that went up, and I overheard the trooper saying it was a crime scene. Can the trooper talk to and differentiate what a crime scene and an accident scene are? If it was a crime scene, what do you suspect the crime was?
As far as that question, this is an accident scene, sir. It's a collision,
Okay.
not a crime scene at this time.
I don't know who the best person to answer this would be. The logistics of all of this, I mean, y'all are fighting, you know, flammable liquid, you're fighting brush fire, you've got a traffic incident. I mean, what's sort of the tick-tock of sort of y'all getting there and then sort of deciding what to take? I mean, obviously I'm assuming the fire's priority, but can you just kind of walk through the decision-making, what takes precedent, and how y'all had to sort of piecemeal this together to get things under control?
Absolutely. As the mayor said, and as you had mentioned in your question, this was a very logistically taxing incident with lots of priorities that the first responders had to mitigate simultaneously. The success of our response to this incident is absolutely based on the relationships we have with our local and county public safety agencies, the Frederick City Police, the Frederick County Sheriff's Office, the Frederick County Division of Fire and Rescue Services, Frederick City Government and their Division of Public Works, Frederick County Government, all work seamlessly, and even as soon as the call was dispatched, phone calls were being made to enable the coordination of all of those public safety response assets. So it was very complex, but all of those agencies deployed rapidly to ensure that this wasn't a much larger catastrophe than it already was.
Chief, this might be I'm sorry, you follow up?
Oh, sorry, my follow-up was just, was it windy? Did that present any challenges? I know today's a windy day, I was just curious if that made life.
So the wind did not complicate the incident at all. The largest complicating factor of the incident was the volume of flammable fuels that were involved, which created quite a significant fire load. And I'm sorry, there was a...
Yeah, the impact on traffic. Are the roads still closed right now? How big is the closure? And walk me through how long you expect those closures to last.
So I do know that northbound Route 15 is still closed and will be closed for an extended period of time while the investigation and cleanup continues. Coincidentally, with that closure of northbound Route 15 between Patrick Street and 7th Street, we have some ancillary Frederick City streets that are closed to assist with both the cleanup and the investigation. We do not have a projected time as to when they'll be reopened, but we have incrementally been able to release some traffic patterns back to normal to relieve the gridlock.
Southbound is still moving freely.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Did any federal agencies respond to the scene?
Not as of yet.
Can you repeat the question for the people watching?
Yeah, so the question was, are there any federal agencies involved in the response at this time? And there are no federal agencies involved in the response at this time.
Do you need to contact the EPA when something like this happens?
So our direct contact and notification is the Maryland Department of the Environment. Their representative is with us here, and then they make any additional contacts and notifications beyond their office.
In terms of the environment, it was mentioned that you guys are going to be monitoring in the next few weeks or so. What exactly does that entail? What is the process in terms of ensuring that no contamination took place in the creeks and rivers here in Frederick?
Yeah, so cleanup's going to take some time. So we had a hydrocarbon or a flammable liquid fire or fuel leak that went across the ground. So we have to make sure that we contain that, which we have, and now it's a process of cleaning that up, removing earth and the such that's contaminated. And we do that with our partners in the Maryland Department of the Environment, their cleanup contractors, and they work directly with the Frederick County Health Department to ensure that the health of the public is maintained.
Residents in the neighborhood told me that there's a little bit of concern there's not a barrier between 15 and the homes there. Is any plans? Can anybody talk about some of the safety measures that may be taken in the future to ensure that this doesn't happen again?
As I think everyone who is familiar with Frederick knows, the Route 15 area through the center of the city has long been a transportation priority. We're trying to get additional lanes. We're pleased that there's construction funding in the Consolidated Transportation Program for 2028 to bring some additional lanes to this area. We think that's both a a necessity for travel, but it will also improve safety in that corridor. Part of that conversation is the presence of sound barriers. The residents along that area certainly would like to see that, and that's certainly something that we'll continue to advocate for. We want the best, safest traffic through the city of Frederick that we can possibly get.
Do we know approximately how many firefighters responded to the scene?
So this was the equivalent of a second alarm response for the fire service. It's safe to say that we had over 100 fire rescue responders from not only Frederick County, but from Carroll, Montgomery, and Washington counties respond to our to assist in the response.
You mentioned extensive damage to one home that ended up displacing a family. Can you tell us about the extent of that damage, and then tell us about what you foresee about the homes that are next to that home?
Yeah, so one house on Apple Avenue did sustain what we would call substantial damage. It is not currently livable, and we're working with the displaced occupants to make sure they're appropriately assisted in temporary housing. So I really can't go into much more depth other than that occupancy is no longer livable at this time. The two adjoining properties received what I would call superficial damage from the heat, things like melted siding and the such. So one house was damaged beyond livability, and two sustained superficial damage.
Were there ever any evacuations of that neighborhood, or did you get a hold of it?
So the incident evolved so quickly, the immediate neighborhood self-evacuated, and the firefighters were able to go in and contain the fire before additional evacuations were needed. So there were no structured evacuations during the event.
We're gonna take like 3 more questions.
This should be an easy one, I hope. Just rewind to the beginning of this incident quickly to make sure we're all on the same page. I know the trooper kindly told us that the cause of the explosion is still under investigation. I think someone up here mentioned, and it was confirmed at the podium, that this tanker struck a tree. How did this, was there a collision with another vehicle? What does the scene tell you at this point about how it arrived at that point?
Again, sir, that part is still under investigation. Our crash team is out there conducting their investigation, and there will be a press release later this evening from our media of
But
communications.
it is at least safe to say it was a crash.
Yes, sir, this was a crash. Yes.
Just dialing in on the point of what was in the vehicle, we heard reports that it might have been a gasoline truck. I mean, just can you square the circle of, we're still investigating what was in the truck with determining the harm or potential harm or lack thereof for the community at large?
Yeah, so we believe that the products involved were commonly carried flammable liquids in the line of gasoline and diesel fuel. We have not confirmed the actual quantity yet, so that's why we were not being very specific. But we do not believe there's any harm or concern to the general public at this time based on that release.
I didn't see, I'm sorry.
Getting into the ground and
Correct.
in the air?
Correct. Our hazardous materials team has been monitoring the air in the area of the actual accident, and we've been working with our partners with the Maryland Department of the Environment to isolate the area where there's ground saturation of the fuel, and we'll be working to clean that up.
Thank you.
I guess the response with like hazmat suits versus fire suits, can you tell us why that response is different, or how that varies just from the casual observer standpoint?
Yeah, so the Fire Rescue's hazardous materials team responds frequently as part of our fire rescue response to various types of emergencies. The personal protective equipment that they wear really depends on the hazards that they face. And in an event like this, they would wear flammable or protective equipment that would protect them from thermal insult, no different than their structural firefighting gear. So even though we say it's the hazardous materials team that's responding, they're coming from a fire station, and in this event would wear protective equipment that would protect them from thermal insult.
We're having this conversation just a few weeks after what happened in East Palestine, Ohio. I think it's probably on everybody's minds in this room. I'd love to ask you this question, and also the mayor perhaps, but it's a fast-moving scene. Things are coming in quickly. But did that ever cross your mind? Did what happened in Ohio cross your mind, especially as this response unfolded?
So not specifically. I mean, when we're moving to these incidents that are rapidly evolving, we're thinking about all of the possible hazards that we could face from a fire response standpoint, from a chemical involvement standpoint. So we approach these events and the response very systematically and very strategically. At the very beginning of the incident, it's very fast moving and we're reactive to immediate life safety needs. As those events start to calm down or slow down and we get the fires contained, we back up and start to work on some of the secondary concerns, like the ground contamination. So we're working through those issues now with our response partners, but no, at the immediate onset of this call, our minds go to life safety, protecting people, and we really don't have a whole lot of time to think about other events in the nation at the time.
If the mayor would like, if this is your community here, I know that you're not responding immediately like the first responders are. Did it ever cross your mind to think, my God, this looks like something we've seen?
It's difficult for me because I'm an optimist by nature. So when I hear about any bad incident that's occurring, my first thought is to go to all of the things that seem like the most normal. An accident on Route 15, a house fire that might have, taken a turn. I don't think about the kinds of things that happened in East Palestine, Ohio. I'm kind of glad that my mind doesn't work that way, but I also understand that in the community, these are rapidly evolving incidents. It's easy for the mind to race. We knew that these were going to be questions that we were going to see here today. I'm just grateful that this looks like a fairly routine kind of accident that could occur on any highway anywhere in America, and that this is not anything more challenging than that. You hope every day when you lead a community that you will never be faced with dealing with those kinds of incidents. And I'm grateful once again for the quick response of all the first responders, everybody who's here in the room, who makes the assumption when they respond to this call that it will be the worst thing they ever see. And we're always happy when it's not.
Mayor, real quick, where does the drinking water come to the city of Frederick? Does it come from Carroll Creek?
No.
Okay.
No. We have a number of drinking water sources, and those are all, I would say, well protected. And so there is virtually zero opportunity for an incident like this occurring where it did to ever have an impact on the city's drinking water.
Okay, thank you. We're going to ask the community leaders to get back to work and continue to handle the situation at hand. We appreciate everybody coming out. If there's any further update that warrants a press conference or follow-up press conference, I'll be sure to make sure that everybody here knows any updates and stuff like that. Press releases, as Lieutenant Johnson said, Maryland State Police will probably have a press release out later today, and Frederick County Fire and Rescue will follow up with a press release to our news agencies. So thank you for coming out today.